hopefully this has all been helpful. Let's turn to Darren and see if we have any questions tonight.
Yes, we do have some questions. Andrea from Austin, Texas says, you mentioned earlier to completely take your grip off while you play Bach. Do you recommend that playing or performing through the entire piece?
That's a great question. No, not through the entire piece, but only when the moment calls for it. And of course, how much or how little you grip on the mallet depends on the section. I would probably not have my grip off for something fast, you know, but for something slow, especially like even maybe for that roll, even for that tickle roll, I might do that. Definitely not for the whole piece, and I'm definitely not suggesting don't study your grip. You definitely need to have your grip. It's like know the rules before you can break them. It's just that with Bach, when we're trying to get no articulation or very little, not articulation, but we're trying to get no attack or very little attack, sometimes taking that grip off can give you, it's sort of a little bit like timpani as well. You can do the same thing. That can give you a rounder sound with less ictus and more resonance. So if the moment calls for it, particularly on longer notes or perhaps on rolls, especially in the low register, I would recommend it, but not for faster things and not for more technical passages. What else?
Okay, Lance from Valencia, California asks, what are some good starter pieces to play from Bach?
Oh, that's a great question. I recommend starting with the cello suites. I think that they are easier to take on as entry-level pieces than the violin sonatas, and also the lute pieces. So I would say the cello pieces, and a couple that I would recommend right off the bat are the prelude from the second suite can work very nicely. The only disadvantage is that they're in bass clef, so if you've got younger players or you're teaching, it's kind of a good exercise to learn bass clef, but that could be a little bit of a challenge. The minuets and the gigs in the suites tend to be pretty basic. They don't have a lot of rhythmic complexity in them. I'm looking right now at the second minuet of the first suite and the gig. And they would be very, very fine for younger players or people just getting started with Bach. So I would definitely recommend those. Pretty much any of the minuets would work, and some of the courants also. So start with the cello suites would be my recommendation. Yes?
Yeah, we have another, David Jordan from Cedar City, Utah, actually asked the same question, what's a good piece, Bach piece to start on?
Yeah, and again, I have here the Schirmer edition, but I would suggest searching out some of those Your Text editions. And IMSLP, all of this music is public domain, so having a bound edition is fantastic. I highly recommend it. But in a pinch, you can download any of this music. It's open source now because it's in public domain, and you can find some original manuscript scores. So that's IMSLP. I think I'm saying it right. If you haven't used that resource, it's absolutely fantastic. But again, the easier pieces are the minuets, the gigue also from the first suite, some of the courants, the bourrées also. Some of the more interior, these are dance suites, right? So some of the more interior movements work really well. Stay away from fugues as beginning pieces. And also stay away from the preludes. The preludes, the fugues tend to be much, much more complicated. But those interior dance movements tend to be shorter and definitely more accessible for people just getting going with Bach. Do we have any other questions?
Yes, we have one more question. Gary from Aspen, Colorado asks, should we avoid the common pieces of Bach, such as Prelude No. 1?
Oh, that's a great question. You know, my immediate answer would be no, because my follow-up to that would be, do you love it? Does it move you? Because if it does, you should play it, no matter how many times it's played. And I think that's kind of, I mean, those of you who know me know that's kind of my sort of, you know, modus operandi in life is that, you know, if you love it, you should do it. I mean, and it doesn't matter if 50 million people play it or if one person plays it. If it's music that speaks to you and if that movement really speaks to you, then absolutely go for it. Or if you don't like it because it's so commonly done, that's okay too. but just have a reason. I don't think there's any one size fits all. If you love it, play that movement. If you don't love it and you want to find other aspects, because Bach has all the full emotional range. It has happy, it has sad, it has angry, it has all those different things. So it has everything in it. So, you know, find whatever it is, find what movement really speaks to you. And if it's a common one, that's okay. And if it's not, that's okay. So that's kind of my 2 cents on that. So I think